I am Jeff. This is my Potter's Journal for Groundhog Day 2024. You may have heard me declare it my favorite holiday of the year, probably because of a very special friend. He's gone now, but I can't not remember. I'm going to do that by making a commemorative plate. This is something you might want to do too. Let's see what's going on in the studio today. This is something you might want to do too, for your dog, for your cat, for your horse, for your snake. Who is your friend? Ralph and I met at the shelter, and we picked each other. He was 11 months old, and he spent 4 months there. He spent 4 months there as an attractive young dog. Still a pup in a sense. His puppyhood, he came from a rough background, which is hard to imagine, but I guess the 4 months before 11 months he spent in the shelter, that was all he knew. We picked each other. That he spent 4 months growling at everybody who came to see him. I was the first one that he said okay to. So we picked each other. Once home, day 3, we weren't sure. We weren't sure it was going to work. Maybe it was because I wanted him to stay out in the garage. But that didn't last. He was in here with me, or out on the farm. It was his first spring. We met after Groundhog Day. It was, the first spring came. He met family. He wasn't meant to be another dog. He had lots of other dog friends. His cousin Olive always came to play. He immediately endeared himself to his grandma right across the street. But there was a day late mid-spring, when he just realized he'd landed in paradise. And he ran around a ring of bushes in the garden so fast that he was literally sideways on the ground and not touching. Okay, and this is 5 pounds of clay, if I didn't say. And before we bring the plate out, we want to get all the way down to the bottom, and the sides formed. I'm going to prune a little bit off. He knew he landed in paradise. He had himself a farm. The test drive at the shelter, it might have been Groundhog Day. He put his head down a groundhog hole on a walk in the field above the shelter. So I knew he'd be good for the farm and a best friend. In addition to meeting family, he met Cat. Okay, yes, I had a cat. Its name was Cat. They matched. They were the same colors. And they were immediately friends. Okay, we're not going to have a trimmed foot, so that's why I'm getting this clean all the way down to the bottom of the wheel, and a nice even wall formed. A little bit thicker on the top, because when we pull it out, it'll get thinner. okay. And pulling out my potter's journal, I have done this before for another potter friend and her dog named Poppy. And I put the flowers around the plate. The question now is, okay, I did it for Janice the Potter. Can I do it now for myself? So I'm going to practice first on some little plates. And I think I did come up with a design rather than the poppies. I chose Queen Anne's lace, since he loved rolling in the grass in the field and running with the butterflies. And I thought of doing a drawing, maybe, somewhat like an etching. But in the end, although I really like these, decided I would go with the character-like one that I've developed just as fun over time. I'm going to start by doing some sponging. I'm going to do some practice on a piece of paper and use that on the transition. I'm going to do some sponging, some trailing, some combing. I've never put these all together in one plate, so in a sense maybe we can say I'm just learning, which brings us to Ralph's learning. And because he came to me after, as a puppy, spending so much time as a puppy, he missed out on some of the early stages that a dog would naturally go through. I couldn't figure out why is he still doing that. Puppies do that, but he was in the shelter and he couldn't chew on a stick. But his early training I did here myself, that he learned fetch. He learned fetch in 3 throws. And then said, well, that's enough of that, and wouldn't do it again. Okay, and he seemed to have people skills, maybe bad people skills, due to his maybe rough background that he came from. So I did take him to PetSmart for training, where my sister teaches, is the trainer there. And he liked his schooling. This was a little bit later than you might normally take a dog, but since I decided, you know, he needed more, he was a little difficult. And sometimes that's when people give up, but that's when, if you do go the extra round, you can really, I think, be rewarded in the end. And he liked his learning. He came home. He came home, since this is a mile back a dead-end dirt road, and he sat on the front step after trainings and just had this look on his face, like he'd seen the world, as if he had just come back, okay, from a big first overseas trip, that he'd seen the city lights. And he really liked his learning. I actually stretched it out. I didn't take him to intermediate till the till a year later. Or I mean, he started at intermediate. We skipped beginning. And I am putting, okay, multiple coats on here because if I don't do this thick enough, it kind of burns out or burns through and you don't see the white. I don't know that you'll be able to see this white on white, but it shows up nice after the firing. So after schooling, we were even closer than ever. He was so good with his family, but he bit the mailman. He was showing aggression with strangers. I said something to the vet, and wisely she said, "It sounds like he's a good watchdog. I could prescribe medication." So I took him to the AKC Good Citizens program. And this is when I have to hold my breath. Oh, okay. We did it. And Ralph and I did it. That I was convinced that if he was put in the wrong hands, he would have had to been put down. So he after the program, he was fine. He was fine on a lead out in public. He would be good to anybody and everybody. But when strangers came to the house or the farm, okay, I put him inside. And he felt comfortable and he felt more secure. That he looked out for his family. And we will have to come back and let's get the air out of the squeegee. And we can soak some of that overdone one out. But this is for me and not a show, and I like the imperfections. It shows a naturalness to it, just like he had. Okay, everybody said a rough and rugged cuteness about him. Okay, and I know you won't be able to see. Let's see, we do those up here. Oh, there's a lot of these too. So this is basically, we are going to do sgraffito for his name and the dates, and then I'm going to comb him wet into here yet. So the Good Citizen program was a good thing because that's when I did some extended overseas travel. He had to go and live with a sister in the city, in town, in a neighborhood, and be walked on a lead with other people daily. So that turned out good too, because it gave him a new perspective on life, a bit more diversity, not just a farm dog living a mile back a dead-end dirt road. They had a big window. They had a big window, 3 adjacent windows that he could stare out all day. And did he get to know the mailman there? He watched the mailman go to every house. And when he came up their walk and the slot on the door made the bang, his barking shook the house as if there were an earthquake. Okay, and you know, we're going to do the dots on the inside. This is going to be an over-decorated celebration cake. And when I was taking him home, we were going through a neighborhood. And he's sitting in the truck, in his seat, and I heard a bark. A woof! And I'm like, what is that about in the truck? He never did that before. And I looked up, and there was the mailman. Okay, the hat, the leather sack. So he didn't like his mailmans. And then further down the street, in the same neighborhood, I saw another mailman, but he didn't. But when the mailman went to the door, and the slot on the door made the bang, I heard another woof. And he was looking everywhere. Where is that mailman? And this is going to be one of those ones where we put the dot on the dot. This is going to be completely overdone. Okay, just as you probably say, just as I say my dog was completely overdone, and you'd probably say that too about your pet. So do let me know in the comments if you've made a plate, or some kind of art, or sculpture, or pottery, or will. So this is a point where we had reached complete understanding. Complete understanding, we talked to each other, and could completely understand the other. That he could just give me a look and I'd know what he was saying. And he pretty much did what I asked to. And not only did he talk too, which you've seen in the videos, but he talked to me. And the sister he stayed with admitted it. She said, he's trying to say something to me, but I don't know what he's saying. Well, I did. Oh, and one more thing about his life there. My nieces, they were going to school, and not only did he watch and wait at the window for the mailman, but he waited for the girls. He waited for the girls to come home. And I guess they would just say, the girls. And he'd go to the window and watch. And this is just a little skewer, pottery or wooden skewer from the kitchen. And I just put a little dot in the dot. So whether you can see this now, it'll all show up. Hopefully, after the glaze. And I don't know, I think maybe this needs to be a little wetter. The white should have been. I see a little point sticking up. But this is a commemorative plate. We're not going to be eating off of it. I've also come in afterwards and pushed it in a little bit on things like my bunt-like pans. I've since found out about a dog called a Crompflander, which he looks exactly like, but can't be, because there's only about 2,000 of them, and they're all chipped and documented. But he had so many of the looks and characteristics, and meant to be with somebody and a family dog. So when I wasn't here, he made his way across the street for Saturdays at Grandma's. And some of that has been documented here in videos. So go to any of the videos of the Weaver, well, maybe not all of them, but some of them, I think a couple of the first ones, and he'll be there. When I was doing Farmer's Market, he would spend Saturday with Grandma. And here is a close-up of the dot in the dot. And now, there's no way out but then to just do this. So we lived a good life together, and we knew it. A lot of the last 7 years happened in the background of YouTube. We'll have to let this dry out before we can do the sgraffito part. So, for now, let's take a look back at a Groundhog Day from back in the years before YouTube.
The sun has been out today off and on. I'm sure we'd have seen a groundhog. He has probably caught up with the first Ralph and is chasing one down with her. Stop back and see what's going on in the studio next week.